Hey everybody, I'm back. I was off doing a play, so let's get some reviews going. The Night Before. The Night Before is directed by Jonathan Levine, who did 50/50. I myself am a cancer survivor, and 50/50 is the most on point for my experience that I've ever seen. It's a movie I own on Blu-ray, and I watch it from time to time, and it hits me really hard because it's very, very true to the experience of going through chemotherapy as a young person. And in the movie stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Seth Rogen, which are in this film as well. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Seth Rogen, Anthony Mackie, Lizzie Kaplan, and Tracy Morgan as the narrator. I was so happy to hear him because he had such a horrible accident, and I was hearing that he was never going to be able to come back. Might never talk again. And here he is doing comedy, doing films, hosting SNL. So glad to see Tracy Morgan, and he did a hilarious job with this narration. He's doing a Christmas, where everything rhymes kind of narration, telling the story in the beginning and throughout, and it was very, very funny and adds a lot to it. And the Christmas cheer is absolutely here. But this movie is not for everyone. It's a stoner comedy. It's got drugs and sex in it, and cussing and all of that, but it's definitely geared towards people these characters are my age. They're in their early 30s, and they're going through that period of time trying to find where they're going to be in life, and maybe they've found it, or maybe they're stumbling along the way, or maybe they're doing really great, or they're a loner, wherever they are. And these three characters are in very different places. The film's premise sets around Joseph Gordon-Levitt's characters. His parents pass away from a driving accident on Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve and Christmas is just ruined for Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. But Seth Rogen and Anthony Mackie come in there and just say, no way, we're going to make this best day that you can ever have. With every Christmas Eve, they have all of these rituals and all these places that they hit to have these great partying, drugged out, drinking times. But it's not too far like a lot of films go. It's a lot more innocent than some. It was very funny, and then at the core of this film, there is a touching friendship story here, and I really enjoyed that. And I like Seth Rogen. Some people don't. Some people just are turned off by his laughter, That's a terrible impression of Seth Rogen's laughter. These three friends, you really believe them as friends, and they're at a point in their life where the Seth Rogen character, he's married and he's got a baby on the way, and the Anthony Mackie character, he's a famous athlete, and he's getting all this notoriety, so he's too famous to hang out with them. And Seth Rogen and Anthony Mackie make this deal that they're going to have to tell Joseph Gordon-Levitt this is their last night doing this. This is sooner or later they got to grow up, is what they figure. But ever since the first night they ever went out and did this, the three of them have always wanted to get into this party known as the Nutcracker's Ball, and they've never been able to figure out how or where it is. But in this last night, Joseph Gordon-Levitt has scored 3 tickets to it. So they're going to finally get to go to this party. There's this whole thing about friends when they grow up, when they get married and they have kids, they kind of pull apart a little bit, and I've experienced that, and I could relate to that. So there's relatable substance to this film. It's not a gross out stoner comedy. It didn't go too far, as I said. There's a lot of pop culture references that are only set up really for someone of my age that would get, playing GoldenEye and everything. If you're younger, you may know that as well. I'm not saying that you wouldn't. I'm just saying that was really around my age when that game came out, and how popular it was and what a big deal it was. And so that the way they talk to each other and everything, I just really identified with the characters. And there's some cameos in it. There's a cameo at the end that is just perfect, just absolutely perfect. It's not the very end, but it's just, I'm not spoiling anything because there's a bunch of cameos in this film. It's like, oh my god, they got that person, but there's one that's just dead on perfect, and it just had me laughing, And this movie had people getting up out of their seats and leaving, but they were like elderly people who came in to see a funny Christmas movie, and it was just too far for them. But if you're in your early 30s or even in your late 20s, you're going to enjoy this. You're going to identify with it, unless you're just not one of those kind of people. You're not one of these kind of people. Not to say that I'm a drugged out kind of a guy, one of them, but I live in the real world, is all that I'm saying. This film knew what it was. It didn't go too big. It wasn't a gross out comedy, and it had at its core, it had a very good message and a very nice story about friendship. So for what it is, guys, The Night Before, I'm going to give it a B+. This is a movie that I would watch again. This is a movie that I would own. And I really enjoyed it. I thought they did a really good job. And I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt brings a little element of class to the film that just pushes it down from being something like The Interview. That movie was just, you may like it, I thought it was just trash. If it had been James Franco instead of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I think it would have lost its sentiment. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt played that sentiment very well as being the nucleus to this. Nucleus? I said it right. To this whole thing, this whole group. But anyway, guys, this is just my opinions. They're not written in stone because what do I know?